I don't hear
Should
anything.
be.
Okay.
We're on time.
Are we live?
Are we live?
I don't know if I have sound.
We have sound.
Test, test. No sound.
Test? Okay.
There we go.
All right. All right. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Solvang City Council, September 14th, 2020, 6:30 p.m. Could I get a roll call?
Mayor Protem Clark,
Here, Rochelle.
Councilmember DeJarnius,
Here.
Councilmember Johnson,
Here.
Councilmember Waite,
Here.
Mayor Toussaint.
Here. All right. Robert, you want to lead us in the pledge?
Yes, please stand. Place your right hand over your heart. Repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
All right. First item is public communications, written or verbal. Can I get the criteria for public comment read out?
The council welcomes your input. State law does not allow council to discuss or take action on issues not on the agenda, except that the members of the council or staff may briefly respond to statements made or questions posted by persons exercising their public testimony rights. Staff may be asked to follow up on such items. The public comment at this point is for items not on the agenda, and due to COVID-19, we have both participation with social distancing in person, where we will take those comments first, as well as by Zoom and by phone.
Okay. We have one speaker slip here. Lee Rosenberg. Yep.
Thank you all. And with fire and smoke and COVID and everything else disrupting our lives, I guess it's time to lighten things up a little bit. So with two jokes, I hope I can get you to laugh and at the same time get a message across.
In 3 minutes.
First, did you know that scientists have discovered the fastest thing in the world? No, of course not. If you don't, it's milk. That's because it's past your eyes before you know it. Anyhow, that's joke one. I apologize. Since I don't see our security guard,
Tip your waiters.
since I don't see our security guard threatening me, here's the second joke, and it's a little longer. We appear to have a deep state in the Solvang. It's called Solvang Strong, or SS as some know it. SS appears to be against many things, but has not indicated what they're for, except that they're supporting a slate of candidates for the city council. Which brings me to the point. Solvang has one significant and iconic building. It's the windmill on Alisol. Photographed as it is by virtually every tourist with a camera, there must be millions of pictures circulating around the world, in Asia and elsewhere. So this important icon representing Solvang is now covered with political signs. I accept that the owner of the windmill structure has the right to allow that. However, I ask the council tonight to make every effort to have the signs taken down in deference to the importance of the windmill. Now, the joke is that a couple of the signs are for candidates supported by the SS. Given their history, one would think they would object to this defacement. Another issue is the validity of Mr. Urig's filing status for mayor. And I've put in a public records request under FOIA to determine his residence and domicile when he filed, including utility bills and such. I've asked for these records because there's some reason to believe his filing lacks legitimacy. Urig is running on transparency, and I hereby ask him and other candidates to do the same. The community deserves that, and that is what I've heard over and over again. So if there is any question about legitimacy of filing or of anything else that would be a disqualification, I ask that they step forward and take the heat. Thanks.
Thank you. Do we have any callers on the line for public comment?
Would anybody online, on Zoom or phone like to speak on items not on the agenda? If so, please raise your hand or unmute yourself. I don't see anybody raising hand.
Okay. With that, we'll move on to executive reports and advance calendar.
Yeah, I would like to start by inviting Shelby Sim under this agenda item to give his brief report on quarterly report from Visit Santa Ynez.
Perfect.
Mayor Toussaint, Solvang City Council, City Manager, City Attorney, thank you very much for having me out this evening. Always good to see you. It's great to see you live and in person. I'm here to primarily answer any questions you may have about our second quarter report that hopefully you've all seen, but I will make a couple points. We were pretty much under lockdown through at least 2 months or so during the second quarter, so we did not do any active inviting of people to the Santa Ynez Valley, active advertising. But we did develop an incredible safety program and a great educational tool for all businesses and all travelers that come to the Santa Ynez Valley to come here safely and respectfully. I know that our community was really worried about when tourism resumed and a lot of folks coming and bringing the virus here. And as today's active cases show, that we have not. And so we are still doing very safe and responsible visiting. We are advertising again. Our Place to Be campaign is taking off and doing really well. The place to be hungry, the place to be thirsty, the place to be together. And also along with that and the safety, we're really proud. Because we were promoting safety along with visiting, we were really attractive to writers and editorial and news magazines. They still have to do stories. And so we were attractive to that. And so you'll notice in the report we had over $744,000 worth of PR just in the second quarter. So we're proud of that. And we're hoping to build on that. We've got a new campaign that's going to start next week. We're really excited about it. I don't want to share it now, but yeah, so we're rolling. As you all know, the weekends are busy in Solvang. The weekends are busy in the Santa Ynez Valley. And so we've just started a midweek promotion campaign to really sell workcations, right, to where everyone has to go to school remotely, so why not do that from your hotel? And our hotels are actually converting some rooms and dining rooms and meeting rooms into temporary workstations so that whoever's got to work can go to work and the kids can Zoom in school while they're actually staying here in the Santa Ynez Valley. Happy to answer any questions.
What is occupancy rate right now?
On the weekends, it's 100%. On the weekends, we don't have enough rooms. Our 1,600 rooms are not enough in the Santa Ynez Valley.
Great, good job, thank you.
Yeah.
And is ADR lower or up or about the same?
ADR is still working towards what they can do. Yeah, right now the goal is to fill the rooms, and as we gain more traction, and hopefully we go from purple to red soon, and we get 25% indoor capacity in our places, we're confident that that'll help us.
And what are we off from last year midweek? Do you happen to know off the top of your head?
A whole bunch. Solvang is, yeah. You know, I will tell you, our unincorporated and Buellton are doing very well. They're actually kind of matching what they did at this year time around last year, and Solvang is a little slower to come up to speed as far as our funding goes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have any stats on the workstation program that you guys put out there? I think it's a wonderful idea.
Yeah, we just launched it, officially launched it this week, and so we're really looking forward to the traction we'll see. Different hotels have tried to do it on their own a little bit, so we're hoping that with our strength behind it and numbers and everything that it'll help. And again, you know, the Santa Ynez Valley is wide open spaces and no traffic and plenty of elbow room. And when we had to convert to outdoors, we were already 90% outdoors, so it wasn't too hard to convert. So we're a really attractive destination for for drivers, right? It's a drive market right now, and so that's pretty much what we're advertising to, is everyone that can drive here as far as Phoenix. That no one wants to get into a tube and fly across the sky right now, so drive markets are what we're really hitting.
What's the average length of stay? Has that increased at all?
Like I say, weekends are doing great, and so 1 to 2 nights right now.
So it's the same as last year then?
Yeah, about the same. Yeah, absolutely. But again, after being shut down for a couple of months, we're pretty happy with where we're going. Yeah.
I'll help. Are you keeping stats on where these people are coming from? Do you have anything like that in terms of data?
Well, Los Angeles, and Los Angeles. Southern California is our bread and butter, very much so. But more of our hoteliers are telling us that the Bay Area is coming, that Central California is coming.
Because they can't see across the street.
And you don't want to take advantage of that, but folks are trying to get away from smoke, and,
Sure.
and we're kind of in a good position in that as well.
Yeah.
That's great news.
Yeah.
Perfect. So do you have any future plans you want to share with us?
Sure. Thanks, Chris. Great. We're actually coming up for renewal, and we're going to start our contract ends in July of next year. And so in October, next month, I'll be back to let you know our intent to renew our contract, hopefully go for another 6 years, and hopefully appreciate what we're doing in your city and as well as the Valley. And then we'll go out and have a petition signed by the hoteliers, getting their support. And then we'll be back sometime, probably in the first of the year, to let you know this is the support we have, and we'd love to go for another 6 years, and hopefully we'll say, let's do it.
Perfect.
So I'm interested in knowing the information that you've gained from tourist input regarding parking. I know that I've seen more public parking signs put up to direct people to places that they didn't know about where they could park.
Yeah.
So it's really important to me to know. I mean, especially trying to work with
Yeah,
traffic
we
flow.
don't keep track of that. We're hoteliers, so our folks are coming and parking in the hotel and walking around town. So we don't. People who just come in for the day, we don't really have any data on that people are having trouble parking. There's plenty of room at the hotel parking when they're staying at the hotels.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Other than thank you for what you do.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
My pleasure. It's great to be here at Lucky Sky Live and the most beautiful place in the world to do it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Let's see. Zena, do you have a report?
Yes, I do. So I want to start by giving you an update on a couple of items that transpired this last week. We had two different, we had a planning commission meeting, and we also had a first meeting of the branding and design committee. One item to mention, which is relevant to item number 4 on your agenda here, is that the Planning Commission did renew the farmers market permit for another 5 years, and they did so with the primary location for the farmers market being on Copenhagen Street. We did some outreach to the customers and to the vendors or the farmers, and the surveys showed that about 2/3 of the customers preferred Copenhagen Street, and about 2/3 of the farmers actually preferred the first street still, but there was a lot of comments about just getting used to it, and there are other things during the winter, especially when it's rainy and whatnot, that we can do to accommodate the farmers as well, to where they could potentially park their vehicles a little bit closer to their stands. And then, of course, we had our first branding and design committee that occurred on September 10th, the Thursday, which was exciting. Everybody took, or the committee took oath and selected a chair. The chair is René Kerskov, and the vice chair is Mark. Sorry,
Brett Marchi?
Brett Marchi. Messing up my names. Brett Marchi. So they also had an opportunity to set the advanced calendar for at least the next couple of next items that they would be focusing on. And one of their high priorities will, of course, be the request for them to look at the design for Copenhagen Street. So with that, and also with confirmation of that action, they knew that you had this item on the agenda, as you said it by a previous action, to hear a resolution for a longer closure of Copenhagen Street today. So we discussed that, and they set a community workshop for September 23rd. So pending today's outcome, we'll be doing some outreach and scheduling that, where they will have an opportunity to actually go out to Copenhagen Street and look at it in person, and then also have a session with the community discussing the design back here at the City Hall.
So I'm actually curious about how you're going to do the community outreach. Is it just a one-time thing, or do you have like a series of community outreach meetings planned?
Well, right now, and we'll have to see how that goes and what kind of feedback we receive on the 23rd. But right now, it's scheduled for the 23rd only. Obviously, the committee on Thursday was brand new, just getting
Certainly,
into office, setting the advanced calendar. Depending on how the 23rd turns out, we'll obviously have to work through that. There's always some complications with COVID-19 right now and all the public participation. But depending on that outcome, then that committee can continue as needed additional
And what about
outreach.
community surveys? What I'm getting at is I want as much buy-in. I'd like to see as much buy-in from the community and give them as many opportunities to contribute. I don't want to have a one-time meeting and then people say, I didn't get the memo to come over and visit and share my thoughts. So if you can somehow fit a series of meetings in, or a series of surveys as well, to really get as many of the community to participate, I would appreciate that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, that is the recommendations on, different outreach tools can be something that we can discuss as part of this first community workshop as they dig into this issue. Obviously, they will also have some desire probably to get this back to the council for approval as soon as possible, so we can actually go ahead and begin on transforming Copenhagen Street.
So I just have one quick comment regarding this. Has the chairman of the committee, have they been privy to the original plans for Copenhagen? Have they seen those drawings and those renderings that were done by prior council that were never put into action?
No, they have not seen those yet. But yes, that is something that we can provide
I think
them.
that would be very beneficial for them to see that.
Yeah, that's a good
See what
mention.
could be done, but what wasn't done or to work with.
Right. Yeah, they have a lot of materials to review, obviously, all of the code sections that apply to them, the existing design guidelines, the sign ordinance. So, and they did request, more information before they have this workshop that's a little bit more technical information about the street, the safety requirements, whatever limitations apply. And yes, definitely this prior work would be an interesting piece for them to have as well. So just a reminder, because we are now getting a lot of traction on this has been reposted on the website under recent news. Just a reminder to everybody that the amnesty program for the building permits has been extended by this council through December 31st. So we encourage everybody to come in. If there's any unpermitted work on your house or business, please come in this time period, and there will be no penalties or late fees for you to get permitted. So just a reminder, and please spread the word out that this is out there and available. Another just outreach, this is not our workshop, but SBCAG will be doing a workshop that is going to be a virtual workshop on September 24th. I've added this to our website as well. There's a couple of fairly large planning efforts going on here. There's the Connected 2050, which is their long-range transportation planning, and we are also in an update for the regional housing needs allocation from the state, which will impact the city's requirements for creating additional housing. So they're holding virtually on September 24th a workshop, and they're encouraging everybody to participate in that, including residents of the cities, which will obviously also be impacted by these efforts. Now moving on to advanced calendar for September/October, depending on our timing here. We did close the RFP for the general plan update, so that's under review, and we'll recommend it contract will be coming to you for consideration as potentially as soon as at the next council meeting, if not, then at the following one. The Branding and Design Committee will be also, in addition to the Copenhagen Street closure, working with staff's assistance on finalizing the language for the ordinance for them to be officially codified in Title II under committees under our city ordinance. And then they have also been requested to look at the animal drone convenience license ordinance, at the first two sections of that, where the code section speaks about the motive of the aim for this license. So they have been asked to review that language and to make any recommendations for that to come back to council with the next review of that ordinance. We already discussed the Copenhagen closure design guidelines and implementation plan, which is on their first priority. As we talked about September 23rd, their next meeting will be on October 8th. They're following the BAR usual schedule. We are also going to be, per council's requests, coming back with just an update on reacquisition of suspended table A. That will be an update from the water department. Another item that we've been talking about is bringing back purchasing and budget policy, control policy, just to clarify how all that works and make some amendments to that. We'll also be coming back with local business assistance from the National Development Council and the Economic Development Council. They will be meeting with the steering committee that IDK has been working with, just to get a little bit better feedback from businesses and use that group for their work so that they can make better recommendations as to what kind of programs would best serve our community. And then we'll also be coming back with a presentation for the Sheriff's Department, including traffic enforcement recommendations. And then looking more down the line into October, as you have just heard from Shelby, that the TBID renewal item will be coming to you in October. We'll also be, this week, the RFP for the visitor center operations is closing. So I'm looking forward to seeing those bids and hopefully coming back to you in October with a proposed contract. We also have the water and wastewater fee study that needs to go to RFP, and the general plan fee, which is adopted under your current financial plan. We'll also be updating the website. I've been doing a lot of updating on our current website, so everything is actually up to date, but it is a cumbersome system on the back end, so we're looking forward to having a much more robust, more modern system. And then, of course, we'll be coming back with an update on our finances and how we're looking through the first quarter with the COVID-19. And that concludes my report.
How many people have expressed interest in the visitor center RFP at this point?
I have had a couple of organizations ask me a couple of questions, but I have not seen a proposal at this point. So the proposals are due
So only
tomorrow.
two so far that expressed any
Yes.
interest. Okay. Thank you.
And proposals are due tomorrow by 4 p.m.
Okay. Anything from our city attorney? Okay. That'll end that item. We'll move on to the regular business agenda. Or actually, no, I'm sorry, the consent agenda, item 3. Does anyone have anything they want to pull from the consent agenda? I'll make a motion to accept the agenda, the consent agenda as is.
I'll second it.
It's been seconded.
Mayor Pro Tem Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember DeJarnis,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Waite,
Yes.
Mayor Toussaint.
Yes.
Passes 5-0.
Regular business agenda, item 4, Copenhagen closure resolution, staff report.
Thank you. So item number 4, Copenhagen closure resolution. The recommendation 1 is to consider adopting resolution 21123 to close Copenhagen Drive through June 30, 2021 between Alisau Road and 1st Street and between 1st Street and 2nd Street to vehicular traffic, and to direct staff to work with Branding and Design Committee to develop design guidelines for Copenhagen street closure and implementation plan to promote Solvang brand and character. Just to give you an outline of preceding events that led us here is that in March 2020, the nation, the state, and the county and the city of Solvang declared COVID-19 disaster emergency. In June 2020, Council temporarily closed Copenhagen Drive through July 4th celebration. It was a temporary closure, and you see the little picture here indicating what it kind of has looked like. That closure was administered by IDK as sort of in lieu of an event, since the events are not allowed. But since then, shortly after or around that time, the state and the county modified the guidelines to where they further created restrictions only allowing dining outdoors, at which point the Copenhagen closure became even more obviously very important piece for us to be able to sustain our economy through this period of time with the COVID-19. So in August of 2020, Council voted to bring forth a resolution to close Copenhagen Drive permanently. On September 2020, Council established Branding and Design Committee, and Branding and Design Committee, as I have mentioned earlier, has met on September 10th, and they are requested to create design guidelines and also to create a recommendation for an implementation plan. They will be holding the first workshop on this issue on September 23rd. Some of the alternatives that Council may consider from a policy perspective is that if you're discussing permanent in terms of setting up for COVID-19 at this point and creating the nice looking for tourism and business operations in Copenhagen, that is something that can be accommodated with not a whole lot of planning requirements, of course, and we will only be really looking at the design guidelines and then working with the businesses on how to best administer that. If you were to talk about more permanent changes to the Copenhagen street, then you could direct that as your direction today, in which case there may be, depending on the extent of those changes to Copenhagen Street could be triggered, the review of the Planning Commission and the BDC. My recommendation would be that those more major updates would probably be best accommodated if you were to align that with a general plan update. And at this point, we can really dive in and make sure that we are targeting our tourism center, Copenhagen Street, and setting it up with nice style and design. You could also make, based on some of the feedback from the community, you could, and I have worked with our Public Works Director Engineer to look at options to potentially open up a little bit of the traffic to parking lot 2. It may not be as inviting from a marketing perspective, but you could potentially open up one lane over by parking lot 2 with fairly minimal effort from Public Works and creating some of those barriers. Those are kind of the main considerations and alternatives that you could take action on today. The recommendation as it stands is for you to approve the resolution closing through the end of this fiscal year, which gives us the ability to work immediately with Branding and Design Committee to set up the street to best meet the operations needs and the marketing needs, and then to make any additional changes probably more down the line. Some of the considerations with the implementation plan is that when we talk about working with the Branding and Design Committee and working with the businesses, the least restrictive option that you could direct us to work on is to develop guidelines only, so we're only regulating and we're not really giving money or funding the business operations, and we would only then, as a city, invest in common area improvements. We could, because obviously we recognize that this is a difficult financial time and some businesses may have a difficult time complying with these regulations, we could develop a partnership with businesses to where the city could potentially help them upfront the funding to meet those design guidelines and then have a repayment plan. then the last and not recommended would be that the city would fund the entire improvements of the Copenhagen street, including the public needs and as well as any facilities and furniture that would be used by the businesses.
And how would you determine the cost of doing that?
So the cost is unknown, and when we talk about bringing in design committee BDC, developing these guidelines, one of the things that we began to discuss that there may be the best option to go is probably for them to create sort of a tiered menu type of design guidelines to where you could have, you know, the least expensive option, maybe something in the mid-range and something that's a little bit more substantial. So those could be the guideline or design guidelines that they develop that then would come to the council for consideration of budget and what it would actually cost.
And what about a more, what about developing a more permanent plan? In other words, I want the community input on this, but it doesn't have to be done in the same time frame. I'd like to see some kind of a group put together for a longer-term view of what we could do with the Copenhagen Promenade, as you're calling it, and how that would be paid for.
Right. Well, that's where I think my personal recommendation would be that we are bringing in a consultant to do the general plan update.
Okay.
One of their first tasks on that contract is to have community engagement. One of those considerations under that community engagement would obviously be the downtown main street of Copenhagen Drive. So my recommendation would be for that consultant to work with branding and design committee and for that consultant to work with the community to make recommendations for more substantial changes to Copenhagen Drive. And that would also satisfy the, you know, the procedural requirements that would need to take place then working with the Planning Commission and the BDC on actual plans and creating that project.
Would that take into consideration parking issues? I know that we're supposed to have started a parking study, right?
Yes.
So that would be rolled up into this as well?
The parking study will be also informing the general plan update, yes.
And isn't there a lot of infrastructure that needs to be upgraded in this particular zone?
I think that as we go along, and as you know, that with this financial plan, you also adopted doing some additional studies on the water and wastewater. So those are also being in parallel being studied and updated.
I bring that up only because my understanding is that it runs right through that section of town, right? That's the area that needs to be developed before we can do any other, and the infrastructure needs to be developed before we can do other kinds of developments.
Right. I would have to ask the Public Works Director to maybe comment on this a little bit more, but I think that there is areas in different parts of town, not just that one, that once he completes the water and wastewater system studies, he'll be able to provide with updated recommendations.
Well, I mean, and I'm going to throw this out because you and I had a conversation, full disclosure. We were talking about the need for a new water storage system for that part of town. And if we're going to close in a permanent way Copenhagen, how would that affect the water needs of that part of town? And what kind of infrastructure we have to build to support that?
Good evening, Mayor Toussaint and council members. A couple things. The water storage needs that the city has is relative to an entire pressure zone. So about 60% of the city falls within pressure zone 1, which is our largest zone, which, you know, City Hall and Copenhagen and the main part of the city is all in pressure zone 1. Pressure zone 2 makes up about 35% of the city, and pressure zone 3 is about 5% at the very top of the Alisal Hill there. So the storage that we need, what's envisioned now is that the existing reservoir along Alisal Road, kind of near the top of the hill there, would be enlarged or have two, side-by-side tanks. So, and since the water distribution system is networked and linked all the way through the city like a grid, that would be all that we'd need to do as far as the water storage requirement. But I do know there are a few water lines, throughout the older part of town, the commercial part of town, that where, for example, we have 6-inch pipelines that really need to be upsized to 10-inch and things like that. But when we complete the water master plan, we'll look at all that. So we did a kind of a preliminary look at that when we updated our water system hydraulic model 2 years ago, but we were mostly focusing on fire protection with that. And so we'll look at, with the water master plan update, we'll look at projection of future demands based on projection of development and like ADUs being added and things like that. And then we'll run the hydraulic model and see, based on those additional demands, what are the pipe sizes, pipes that need to be replaced and what size and so forth.
So there would be considerable infrastructure improvements required, anticipated.
Throughout the city,
Right.
but I couldn't pinpoint it to Copenhagen Drive specifically at this point.
Well, certainly not at this point, but if we were to make it more permanent and do some changes in terms of the architecture and the infill ordinances, I could see more water being required to support that area.
Sure, it's likely there's a few lines, water lines and sewer lines through the main commercial part of town that will need to be upsized, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so once again, the recommendation is for you to adopt a resolution closing the Copenhagen Drive through June 30. That would allow us to work with the business community and bring in the design committee to create a more inviting design and be able to invest in that for a prolonged period of time. And then, of course, to direct staff to work with Brandon and Design Committee to create these design guidelines and also an implementation plan.
I have a quick question. It's kind of like putting the cart before the horse with the BDC doing designs without really knowing what kind of cost is involved.
Yes.
How do we steer that?
Well, we can't really cost things out without knowing what the design is. And my sort of thought to them was that, you know, it's not, it would potentially not be the best for us to limit them to a particular budget, because then they wouldn't be able to create those creative designs. So at the same time, it's all about return on investment, right? So we could spend $10,000 but not get much. We could spend, you know, $50,000 but get something really great. So that's why I was talking to them as a preliminary discussion that they might want to consider having sort of a tiered menu of different types of designs or different, you know, elements to that design that then we could consider as to what the estimated cost is, and then bring back to you for consideration.
Can you also, I'm sorry, go ahead.
When was the last time we surveyed the business owners in and around Copenhagen to gauge whether they like it or not?
We have not yet. So I think the September 23rd workshop, and yes, I would say surveys would be another element to that, would be the beginning of that work product.
Good.
Can you also do some kind of a phased strategy analysis? So, for example, each stage would be a stronger degree of permanency or a higher level of permanency. The first phase might be very light because we don't know if the community wants this and or how long it would stay, right? And at the same time, if people grow, if they grow to enjoy this and they want more of this, then we can start looking at phase 2 and 3 and see how that ties into infrastructure development as well. So it's not just the branding and design, but also how do we go about making this more permanent over time?
Sure.
I have a comment. I think by adopting this resolution and taking the suggestions of staff, that it actually does make it a phased process, because we're only asking to do this through June 30th. And during that time, we would get a very good idea of how the businesses feel. And then our branding and design committee would have a number of options to look at and decide. And what I don't want to see is I don't want to see us getting into the weeds and micromanaging our branding design committee, that we took great pains to, you know, appoint very, very appropriate people for such a committee. So I'd like to see them get to work on this as soon as possible. And unless we can adopt this resolution, there's really no point in them getting to work on this. So, and I think this is a stepped way to do it.
So this is more questions of the staff report right now, but I feel like we're starting to get more into political statements and debate. Are there any questions of the staff report? Okay.
Nope.
With that, we'll go to public comment. I have no speaker slips on this item. Would anyone like to speak? David Rasmussen.
Good evening, City Council. David Rasmussen. We have a property on Copenhagen Drive. I want to commend the council for closing Copenhagen Drive at the start of COVID. You were one of the first to do this. I think Santa Barbara was the first city, and Solvang was right on their heels. So I think that was a good move for the social distancing, and it's been especially good for the restaurants to be able to serve outside so they can stay in business. That's all been very good. But we also need to pay attention to what we might be losing if we do this. We have a very special little town, and you're going to change the character. It's not going to be, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. So just pay attention to what we might be losing in addition to what we might be gaining. And on this is actually a planning commission document, but there was verbiage on this agenda item too that said something like, if a citizen wishes to challenge the nature of the above action in court, they may be limited to raising only the issues that they or someone else at the public meeting described. I want to go on record that I'm interested in the whole process, from design, implementation, finance. So I'm interested in all of this for Copenhagen Drive. And I would ask that you not make it permanent until we go through a winter. See what it's like in the wintertime. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
I agree with that.
Are there any callers?
Would anybody like to speak on this item? If so, raise your hand if you're on Zoom, or unmute yourself if you're on cell phone. I don't see any raised hands. Oh, there's one. Jim Merzen. Please go ahead.
Whoa.
Jim?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. You know, I sent an email to the council last week about closing Copenhagen. I own the Creamery building, owned it for, I don't know, 20 or so years. And I can't believe you're thinking of closing Copenhagen for 9 months or permanently, with just sending out a notice to me last week, and I have no idea whether you sent a notice to the businesses over there. I told the businesses over there about it, but I don't know if the businesses that are affected got a notice or not. It just seems to me that, I don't know whether it's a good idea or a bad idea, but before you close it for 9 months, why don't you have some kind of meeting with the property or with the businesses and see what they have to say. They may think it's a good idea. They may think it's a bad idea. I don't know. But before you jump off and close Copenhagen until June, it seems to me a little more contact with the people who are going to be most affected by it ought to be had. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any more speakers?
Don't see any raised hands.
Okay. Take it back to the council for discussion and action. Who would like to start? Looks like Daniel wants to start.
Sorry about this. I kind of agree with the staff recommendation. Just turning it over to the committee that we formulated. I think they're going to be well. I think we picked them for a reason, kind of like Karen said, and we should kind of let them run with it, see what their ideas are to bring it back. I think that's getting this ball rolling. As far as closing it down through July, I mean, I don't know that we have other options in this state. I mean, California, we're going to be the last state to open anything up and do anything, you know, to help out the rest of us. So I think we almost have to, at least, I think we can always go back and say, hey, we're going to open it back up. I don't think that's a problem. And I do think we need that committee to come up with some ideas for Copenhagen that aren't so more uniform, a little bit more classy, so that we can just look better and bring in, you know, different clientele as well. So that's my thoughts on that.
my thoughts? My thoughts are, I think it's kind of funny and arbitrary at this point to put a time limit on it and how we're going to do it, because we don't know. Obviously, everything's so fluid and it changes so often. I'm very comfortable with the BDC's ability, I think, to design or give us some great ideas. But I also think it's extremely important to have the merchants have a weighted say in this, because it's their businesses that are here. The parking issue, I've read some emails about people have to walk 2 blocks to get to a certain store because they want to buy one thing, and that because there are locals that own the store or locals that visit the store. And that, to me, I just find odd, because people go to Costco and walk 200 yards to get into the store, or they go to the Paseo and park on the top floor and walk 150 yards to a Nordstrom, and that doesn't bother them because they're going to that store to buy something because they want to buy it. Because somebody can't park right in front of a store, it doesn't make sense to me, because only Beretta on TV got to park in front of everywhere he went, you know? But I think it's extremely important that the merchants have a weighted say in keeping Copenhagen closed.
One thought is that it seems like they're for it because we really only have one merchant here that's talking about it, you know? It's on the agenda. I'm kind of like, why are they not here talking about it? If this is an issue that directly affects them, I kind of feel like they should be here talking about it. Yeah. And I'm not saying it's a yes vote or no vote. That's not what I'm saying. But I would appreciate if they are passionate about it to
Which is why we need to get to do some surveys and get their opinions on it.
Yeah.
Karen?
Sure. Well, I think Mr. Rasmussen had an interesting point about seeing, about seeing how the closure would go through the holidays. I hadn't really given that a lot of thought. But even if we did do the permanent closure through July, we would be able to see how it went through the holidays. And as Daniel said, we can always go back on that. We can always change it and go back. I think it's a very important point that he brought up. I really just want the Branding and Design Committee to really get to work on this. And obviously, we're going to have the workshop, and we really need to make sure we publicize that very well so that people know about it, and maybe they can have more than one workshop so we do get a lot of public input, because I know we make decisions upon what the residents want. We represent the residents. So that's how I feel about it.
Chris?
Well, first of all, I want to remind everybody that I campaigned on this, and I believe some of the other people campaigned on this back in 2018. The idea is that why don't we explore ideas, new ideas, to make the Solvang more compelling, more exciting for visitors and businesses and residents. Businesses so they can make more money, visitors so it's more compelling, and residents so that they want to stay here and spend more time in their own town. So ironically enough, COVID was the driving force behind this. And again, the closure is predicated on the COVID protocols. It's not like we have a choice in this. I think that we responded, as Dave said, as quickly as we could in anticipating the needs of the community with respect to fighting COVID. We did a great job in the short run. Going further out, I think we should take more of a phased strategy approach to this. Yes, we need to get this thing going as Karen was indicating. I'm all for moving as fast as we can. But since they're already thinking about it, it's just a marginal effort to ask the BDC and ask the community to weigh in on some longer-term proposal. It doesn't mean that they have to spend a great deal of time on it, but at least start talking around the margins of what a vision for the Copenhagen Promenade, what that might look like, and when these things might get phased in. So it doesn't have to happen right away. It can be done over a series of meetings, as Karen suggested, and I've been pounding the table. I think that we need to engage the community far more often on particular issues, especially ones that really affect the community, such as a closing of the Copenhagen Promenade. I think that's where the council has gotten into trouble. It's not that the council has been trying to hide anything from the community. That's just not true. But we just didn't communicate in a way, in a consistent and in a serial fashion, so that people can say, oh, that's what the council's trying to do. I think, unfortunately, what happened with the Vets Hall was a total disaster because the community didn't have enough opportunity to weigh in on it. It didn't mean it. I think they completely misunderstood what this council voted to do. We were just exploring ideas. So let's not make that mistake again with respect to the walking promenade. And then again, I think that when you incorporate things like the parking study and the general plan updates, I think that has to be part of a longer-term vision too. So that's why I keep going back to, yes, let's get this ordinance passed, or this recommendation passed so they can get to work on it. But at the same time, let's put this in a bigger context, in the context of a vision for Solvang. That is what this council is here to do, is to set a vision and get the community to buy into it. We lead, and hopefully with the approval and support of the community. If we don't do that, we failed. So that's my 2 cents.
And I'd just like to point out that, you know, staying ahead of the curve is really what this was about. You're watching what's going on. We see the regulations that's coming down from the state, the health departments. It's, you know, the amount of pressure it took for us to actually, you know, be one of the first, you know, to actually react to this and provide that opportunity for Solvang is important. But it's also important for us to recognize where we're at right now in the sense that this isn't a planned out, you know, hey, by this year we're going to go do this on Copenhagen and execute it. You know, part of it's reactive based to give our small businesses and our community the best surviving chance as we get through this. I think there's a number of successful things that we've had. I think I heard the last couple meetings ago that even that microloan program that we issued, that over 50% have already paid back, or?
Yes, I don't recall the exact numbers, but it was about 2/3 that had repaid.
There you go. So, I mean, what it's showing is that by us providing that opportunity and creating that partnership with the community, it's allowing people a fighting chance to get through that, you know, bridge them through until they can get to the next step of whatever's to happen next here, as we take it day by day. But, you know, with that, we have to remember initially why we're going down this path. And, you know, we have to have buy-in. We have to have a partnership. We have to create that ecosystem that, you know, and I don't want it just to get so down the path of it's all just about the businesses on Copenhagen. You know, we're here for all the businesses here. And we got to come up with programs that's going to take care of everyone in a fair and equal way. Yes, Copenhagen is our opportunity site for a closed kind of walking promenade that's needed right now. But I think as we move forward with this, you know, we have to give some kind of timeline, because it doesn't make any sense for anyone to contribute into anything if all of a sudden at the whim of tomorrow, you know, oh great, we'll go do this, and then, you know, you have businesses that just went out and spent all this time and effort and buying things, and all of a sudden it's, oh well, let's just throw that away, you know. So we got to come up with that healthy balance there. So we do need that minimum period of time. We need to see, I mean, yeah, things appear to be working right now, but, you know, we can go through a winter, and, you know, that's going to bring other challenges. It's going to bring other challenges just in whatever's going to happen, and what other, you know, red tags that we might get, or, you know, health orders that might come down, or whatever we might need to react to. But that's just the nature of the game here. The date that really doesn't make sense to me is just randomly June 30th, like right in the middle of the summer busy season. It seems like that's actually the time when things be working. I'm not sure if I'd be, you know, throwing things down then ripping them up during that time. I think there's some more thought to put around that. But other than that, I'm really all for finding some kind of you know, balance between, as you have the BDC working on some guidelines that we push out, but also creating a partnership program so that our businesses have a functioning model to be able to, you know, implement what we're looking to do here in some reasonable fashion. You have to imagine a lot of people are not, you know, it's too positive on the cash side right now. So I think that there needs to be some thought put into that kind of area there. But just basically several elements that as we move forward, I think we need to have, you know, if we're going to create like a partnership program, I think that that's going to need to come back for, okay, here's some ideas that staff comes back with that we can do here. We did the microloan program. Already 3/4 of the people have paid back. What are we going to do to create that balance here so that everyone becomes part of it? But I think if we do that, anyone that's looking to create outdoor experiences, that should be made available to everyone, not just businesses on Copenhagen. But that's my little seance on some of that, food for thought, open to feedback. But I think those are some things that we need to put a little more thought around.
I also wanted to let people know that if there is to be a new council, if we're not here after the election, if some new group comes in, for example, they will have every opportunity to weigh in and make modifications as they go forward. So I want the community to understand this is not a permanent decision. This is the council exploring, with the community's help, a new vision, a new way forward. So I appreciate all the comments of my fellow colleagues. I think they were right on target.
So if I just may add a little bit more information on the picking of the date, June 30. I just think that financially, with the amount of time that it's going to take us to work with BDC and the community to actually have those guidelines and then implement them, probably just getting through the winter is maybe too short, especially if you're going to be looking at, something more substantial as far as the return on investment. The June 30 was picked because I felt that given our timeline on the general plan update and that effort that will be taken with the community, by about spring, there will be some feedback from the community about the vision, at which point by the summer you could have additional steps as a city as to what happens with Copenhagen Drive going forward. Of course, you could extend this past the summer months and give yourselves even more time as well.
The way I see it is that by the time you get all these processes in place, we're already fastly approaching winter.
Right.
That's not when you're going to recognize any payoff from this. You're going to recognize the work from this in what happens next summer. This is us planning for next year. That's how I look at this. And I think that that's the way our merchants are going to be looking at it from a financial perspective of, if I'm going to invest into like right in the middle of the season and then this is going to get, pulled up or whatever, it just doesn't seem to really fit for me. But
I agree. I just think the problem is it really is irrelevant because the council, whoever's existing council, can always pull it out, right?
That's the truth, yeah.
So, I mean, in reality, I think it's a great idea. We could push it out to, the end of September or whatever we want to do and say that right now. But, come in spring, if it just starts to go bad, that council can say, look, we're gonna pull this back, so sorry. And they can, and that's the way it works. So I have no problem pushing it out because at this point, it does kind of make sense to give everyone the whole summer.
Because you won't be here.
Possibly.
I think Daniel's making a good point about preserving the flexibility of the city, the council's ability to move forward.
Yeah.
We want to move with the speed and some permanency, right? But at the same time, preserve our options as we move forward from one phase to the next.
But there's also a dynamic between how long you're giving, these models and stuff to be able to create whatever, whether it's renting from the city goes out and buy, whatever that is, if it's based on whatever timeline, then that's, if all of a sudden they want to shorten that timeline, that's fine. But, that council at that time is going to have to consider those ramifications.
Well, let's get the merchants' feedback and let's let the BDC take over
and
go from
I think they'll do a great job and preserve the character and hopefully emphasize everything that makes Solvang great even better.
It's funny, closing the street has probably brought more press to Solvang over a lot of different things that we've done because it's you read about it quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. Is there any more discussion on this? I can try to craft a motion. My computer's not working, so I can't even see my agenda packet. Let's see. So I think we had a resolution, consider adopting 20-1123 for the closure.
Can you pull up the slide?
Yeah, I have that part. I just don't have all the rest of the meat. Okay, there you go. So really, I had an issue with the date. It seems like there's consensus with the council on the date for.
I'm with Dan. I think it's kind of irrelevant because if there's a new council, they'll change it. So I'm not
No,
really
but
worried about it.
but if you're setting a timeline, you're going to set funding models based upon it. I mean, you got to give some
Yeah.
leadership and direction there.
Okay.
I think extending it out past the summer months at least makes sense.
Because then we'll get through one winter. This winter is going to be more of a reactive, but people get more of a feel of what they're in for and see what happens, and then they'll have time to figure out what they want to do for the next winter.
Perfect.
But they'll be able to rely on the summer, so I think that works.
So why not go out to 2022, June of 2022? I mean, they can always change it, modify it any way they like. We're just setting a marker.
I mean, I'm fine with it, but again, you're the models and then whatever. I'd like to see you get through a winter and then.
Look, yes, we're definitely going to do that. I have a bad feeling that the next winter is going to be a bad flu season. So whether we like it or not, that's just a deal we have to deal with.
Well, I don't see any issue if we just take it out a year from now until
September
this time
30th.
next year. That gets us through
Danish
4th of
days.
July, Christmas, and the summer.
And Danish days.
And it
Yeah.
can be revisited.
So summer kind of like what I think October is when things start to then.
Sure. Just pick a date. I'm fine with it.
Yeah, let's just do till the end of December.
But once again, when are the events? If we're lucky enough to have the events again next year, you're going to basically tear all that out because that's going to be right in the middle of the events.
Well, it's not going to be permanent unless, the permanency of it's going to be a while from now. What we're talking about with this, my feeling is what we're talking about with this program right now is to come up with something that's just nicer, more uniform. It's not going to be like you're tearing up the whole street and putting in cobblestone right away.
And I agree.
And so, if you had an event, then yes, you would have to pull those things off and move them. And
I'm just suggesting that either way, it's going to be a problem. If you try to tear it up in the middle of the summer season, when we have the most of our tourists, that's a problem. You try to do it in the fall when we have our events, that's a problem.
Then do you make it February 1st?
Pretty much, it's like, let's
A
go
year
past.
February 1st?
Yeah, no one's going to care in February. You're right.
And February, March? Or the too quiet?
I think you're right. If you go like March 31st, no one's going to be here. That's the slowest part of the year.
Okay. I'm going to stick with the end of summer next year.
All right, fine.
And then I don't know. Shelby's here. I don't know if he has any. Do you have any insight on the slowest time when you leave summer when it's busier? We go we start going to more fall, winter.
Yeah, I would say Mr. Rasmussen and I would both agree it's January, February.
Yeah.
January, February.
So make it January 1st of 2021.
Okay.
I'd say 31st.
Okay, 30,
Because-
so yeah.
New Year's.
Yeah.
January 31st, 2021.
Okay. So
No, it's
2022.
22, excuse
22,
me.
yeah. All right. So we have
How
a
old
date.
am
Does that make sense, given what the feedback
I'm sorry, I didn't hear it clearly.
January 31st of next year?
Yeah.
Okay.
2022.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2021,
2022.
2021 would be 3 months from now.
which I think is a great plan, but I don't think you should go so far out myself, but if you're asking me. We don't know what like Mr. Rasmussen was saying, I think we really need to go through a winter time and going through a full year after a winter time before you revisit, I think is.
So that was my initial thought, and I was trying to come up
Yeah.
with a date, like
Yeah.
October 30th, September 30th.
Of next year?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll let you after.
Please,
Let me just.
yeah, I think I would agree with David on this, that I think you should revisit this in February of next year, at the latest.
Oh, well, I mean, it's going to be.
2021.
It's an ongoing process.
It's an
They
ongoing
will
process.
do it.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's why I'm suggesting go out till 2022, January 31st, 2022. Whoever's here after November 3rd, they will modify it as they see fit, or they will shut it down. For example, if the community says we don't like it, the business says they don't like it, they can shut it down.
Yeah, I don't think I fully understand what you're deciding on is going to go until 2022.
Mr. Mayor, because I sat through the BDC meeting, I would note a for example. When you first implemented the closure, there was a design which included lighting to create, I think it was called a roof effect. That lighting has now been removed because it was thrown up as very temporary in form. So if you are doing things that have a 2 or 3 month window to them, they're likely to be temporary in nature. And that was one of the things the BDC was asking is, were they looking at things that were going to last a month? Were they looking at things that were going to last 3 months? Were they looking for things that could last a year? And so I think that's
So they're looking for
a big part of the direction that you're being asked to provide them.
Yeah. Again, I'm just trying to stick down to if we're going to create some kind of funding model in partnership with the business. That's what this original intent was. We have to give some kind of guideline, for that model to be based on. And I was just suggesting you get through winter as it is. We know that summer does work.
Right.
We don't know what winter is going to look like. So if we got through the end of summer next year, 2021, then they can decide whether they want to be, what they want to do for the next coming winter.
I agree.
David?
My suggestion would be to keep Copenhagen Drive closed until the restaurants are able to serve inside, and then make decisions from there.
If I may comment on that, even though it makes logical sense, the one problem we face is that all the reopening plans at state and county levels are basically wrap up and push back down if the number of COVID cases go up. So restaurants might be allowed to go back to indoors next week, and then a month later or a week later have to go back outside. So that's one of the operational considerations here with setting this up for a period of time. Hopefully they will be able to have space inside and outside
Right.
to where they can go back and forth.
We've seen this with salons as well.
Yes.
Open, close.
Yeah. I mean, we got to create some form of security, give it a timeline, create models based on that, and then it's always going to be a working, a piece in progress. But we got to come up with something that is not just us telling everyone every day, well, maybe this today or maybe that tomorrow. So
Now, as I understand it, you're just looking to set aside some money so that you can keep it closed for a certain amount of time. And so it doesn't really matter the date you're saying right now. It's just being able to put that money aside.
Right.
You can revisit this in a week. You can revisit
So
it in a
imagine
month.
you have all these struggling merchants out here, and we're
Yeah.
going to create some kind of partnership with them. We got to create some feasible, plan. I don't know if it's renting or, the city goes out and does more of a volume purchase, and then they rent to each merchant spot that takes a spot. Whatever that model is, we need to actually give people, what is it that they're buying into, and let them make intelligent decisions for themselves on what's worth investing in.
And that's really the problem. To get the return on investment, in many cases, you need more time. So if it's too short a time, if it's February of next year,
No one's
it
gonna
probably won't work.
participate.
That's
No-
why we're
yeah,
suggesting
no
a
one will do
longer
it.
period.
Understood, and that's, now that I understand it, I don't see a big problem with June 30th, because you're not gonna, that doesn't mean
Exactly.
you're going to reopen the streets then.
That- right.
That just means you'll have a full year of
Exactly.
data.
Right.
Exactly.
And I was just suggesting we finish the summer season, and it adds a few more on there to allow, things to be more feasible in terms of if it's a monthly payment or whatever else it is. It's the same thing if I'm selling you a car today and I'm going to sell you a $40,000 car, and, we'll just make the terms till, arbitrarily June of next year. Well, now you're going to be paying, a hefty chunk of change every month.
I appreciate you bringing me into the discussion. I think you guys got this figured out. Thank you.
I think another issue to think about is if when you all of a sudden close it in the middle of July and people know that it's open, we've been advertising that it's open, we've made all these
It
modifications.
just causes loads of problems.
It's a huge problem. People will be coming here going, wait a minute, I booked this thinking it was open, and I don't know. I just think it's a marketing nightmare as well.
You gotta let the merchants know what they're going to be selling next year, and that leads into marketing and everything else we put money into. So I think that we get through the end of summer of 2021, and then let them decide. That way you're through a winter, and the powers that be at that time can decide what they want to do for the next winter now that they've been through one.
They can decide after December 10th as well.
Perfect.
So, okay.
I like it.
All right, make your motion.
Okay, so I think we'll adopt staff recommendation on the motion. We'll adopt we'll modify the date here, till the end of October?
Perfect.
Or the end of October. And then we'll direct staff to come back with some kind of a partnership program. If they have a meeting with the BDC as they begin to work on you, because you want to get ideas from them, budget ideas, what they're thinking. They have some kind of timeline now to be able to put something together. I think that staff can then bring that back to the council just to keep us updated as the as things go along. But eventually we'd have to, if we're going to do some kind of a partnership program, then we're going to have to come up with what we're willing to do there and move on that, come up with the repayment plan, and I think we're good.
I'd like to amend that slightly. I don't know if you're finished with your motion, but I'd like to adopt alternative number 1, where we direct staff to develop recommendations for a more permanent idea, and then this would also include project review and considerations with the Planning Commission, the branding design, and in alignment with the general plan update. But again, this would be on a go-forward basis.
So I think that what I'm doing is it's moving the staff recommendation. I'm just making some slight modifications to it. So I think
That's fine. Does it include alternative 1? That's all I'm asking to
So-
include.
It should, yeah.
Would you like to modify your motion,
To include
to-
alternative 1?
include additional research or additional recommendations in alignment with general plan update as part of this motion, or would you like to stay with?
I mean, I'm fine with that. I thought that was kind of inherent in here, but
Yeah.
that's fine. I'm sorry, I don't have my packet, so it's.
So that really, Mr. Mayor, that's why I added it. It wasn't to take anything away from what you were doing.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that was included.
So can I just clarify on what the motion is? So
Yeah.
you would consider, or you would adopt Resolution 21123 to close Copenhagen Drive through October 31, 2021, between Alisal Road and First Street, and between First Street and Second Street to regular traffic. And you would direct staff to develop recommendations in alignment with general plan update for any more permanent closure for Copenhagen Street. And you would direct staff to work with branding and design committee to bring back design guidelines and bring back updates and develop a partnership program with businesses.
That's available to all the businesses.
That's available.
And
to
the
all
community. I'd like to see more community involvement.
Okay, I'll second it.
Okay,
Yeah, what she
has
said.
has been motion and second.
As clarified by the city manager, Zena, I'll accept. I think there's a second by Karen Waite.
There is.
Mayor Pro Tem Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember DeJarnius,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Waite,
Yes.
Mayor Toussaint.
Yes. I'm
Passes
thinking
by
maybe
vote.
we'll take a short break and I'll try to get this thing fixed on my computer so I can actually have
You want to call an IT guy?
maybe I'll call an IT guy.
It gives us an opportunity to understand what you're perceiving. Yeah. And we obviously clarify.
I hate the fact you're not running.
I know. You're going to miss me. Market's roaring back.
I have some friends just calling because.
It's coming back.
Because of my time in.
What?
I used to work on Florida for years.
Yeah.
Or back in the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
People were asking me stuff.
Well, you know,
You're asking the dumbest guy from Wall Street. I said, buy Macy's, it's only $7. But they were panicking at the market. The market, it dumped on
dropped.
Thursday, yeah, but it leveled off, and a little bit of profit taking.
It's coming up.
There's profit.
It's not back all the way, but it's
20
coming
what?
up.
What did we close that?
I don't know. See, I just basically put a little bit of money into it just on my own, just to screw around a little bit. And I just noticed the stocks jumped up. But I also bought some Bitcoin, so.
Good. Did you really?
Yeah.
What's Bitcoin going for?
$10,900, $10,600 a coin. Wow. I don't buy it. I didn't buy that.
I want to
Oh,
know
I got a cash.
who refers to the Solvang Strong as the SS. I like, that's a great name for them. Don't upset the SS.
great update.
All righty. Well, again, good evening, Mayor Toussaint, council members, Matt Vanderlinden, and your Public Works Director and City Engineer. And I did want to just mention, before I launch into the presentation, there were a couple of comments or questions about our parking study. So approximately 3 weeks ago, we restarted our parking study, and our consultant was here all weekend on Labor Day weekend to get some good counts and to observe turnover rates in our parking lots and things of that nature. So we're moving forward on that. So as mentioned, this is our update on our wastewater treatment plant water quality project. Is this? Okay, great. Thank you. So I thought it would be helpful just to give a quick recap of some of the history. So I'll just launch in. The current wastewater treatment plant was constructed in 1996-97. Basically, the construction started in 96, big multi-million-dollar project, ended. It wasn't completed until the following year. And then kind of fast forwarding to more recent years, in November of 2015, the San Ynez Community Services District requested 120,000 gallons per day of additional capacity in our treatment plant. The Community Services District is our partner in the plant. They own 20% capacity in the plant. And then in August 2016, the Regional Water Quality Control Board requested, they met with our staff and they requested that we begin to denitrify the wastewater. So currently in our permit, we're not required to do that, and they made a request that we begin to do that. And that's kind of in connection with the studies they've been doing on the San Ynez River and the total maximum daily loading contaminants along the San Ynez River. So then in January of 2017, representatives from the community or the town of Los Olivos came and met with city staff and requested capacity in the Solvang wastewater treatment plant. So I'll just make a note that this was prior to the new Los Olivos Community Services District from being created. And so we had representatives approach us about that. Then April.
Somebody's off mute online.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I'll carry on. In April 2017, our staff was able to successfully achieve stable and steady denitrification of the wastewater. In May 2017, we began the process to renew our permit. So the city received its current waste discharge permit to operate the wastewater treatment plant in 2007. So essentially, and the permit that we have, it states in there that in May of 2017, so after approximately 10 years, we needed to write a letter to the regional board and begin the process to renew our permit. So that was done in May 2017. November 2017, the City Council awarded a contract to evaluate various different upgrade alternatives. That was our contract with PACE, Pacific Advanced Civil Engineering. And then in May 2018, the Los Olivos Community Services District was formed with the vote in May of 2018. And September 2018, the alternatives analysis final report was presented to the City Council. But so as you may remember, that was just a few months prior to the November 2018 election. So when we had new City Council members in April of 2019, we scheduled a special City Council meeting to update all the new City Council members on the project. And at that time, the City Council asked us to look at a couple additional alternatives, as well as they directed staff to proceed with the purchase of approximately 2.5 acres of additional land for the project. And they also directed staff to hold the capacity of the plant at 1.5 million gallons per day. So we have been considering possibly upgrading to 1.7 million gallons per day or 2.0 million gallons per day, but council directed us to hold it at 1.5. Then in April 2019, we began the environmental review. Staff brought a staff report to the City Council, and a contract was awarded for the environmental review for the project. The environmental review is usually kind of a lengthy process, so we wanted to initiate that early on. And then in August 2019, we presented the 2 additional upgrade alternatives to the City Council. And also in August 2019, the Los Olivos Community Services District made the decision to pursue their own wastewater treatment plant. So at that point, they said, hey, we don't anticipate sending any wastewater to Solvang or needing capacity in your plant. And then in August 2019, also that's when we completed the acquisition of the additional land for the treatment plant upgrade project. In September 2019, additional information was presented to the City Council, and alternative 3, which is the MBR or membrane bioreactor alternative, was selected as the preferred alternative, and staff was directed to proceed with the final engineering and design of the project, and staff was also directed to proceed with a sewer rate study once the design was sufficiently far along where we had updated cost information and could complete the sewer rate study. Then in November 2019, staff reviewed the consultant qualifications. We went through a 2-step process where we solicited requests for qualifications. We had multiple firms submit statements of qualifications, and we shortlisted that to 3 of the, I think it was 7 that submitted. And 2 of the 3 raised concerns about the alternative 3 high cost in their statements of qualifications. Then in November 2019, the scope of work for the final engineering contract was, and the full request for proposal was presented to the City Council and reviewed by the City Council and approved. And then in January of this year, 2020, we received the three proposals. And again, 2 of the consultants expressed concern that the MBR capital cost estimate may be very low or was too low, and they felt the cost would be quite a bit higher. And both of these 2 consultants proposed a variation or a modification of alternative 2 and suggested that we would have a project with much lower capital costs and also significantly lower operating costs. And so let me just kind of go back. So when we were developing this scope of work, because those concerns raised in the statements of qualifications from those 2 consultants, we included a task to validate alternative 3. So in February 2020, the City Council awarded the engineering contract for the project, and so one of the steps, as I mentioned, is this validation step. So we're going to be looking at alternative 3, the MBR or membrane bioreactor alternative, and comparing that and looking more closely at the costs and comparing that to this modified alternative 2, which we're referring to as 2 SFR, which stands for a step feed process with rectangular clarifiers. And with that alternative, if recycled water is implemented, it would be the addition of these special disc filters that are now being used in several treatment plants throughout the country. So in May of 2020, the aeration system replacement technical memo was completed. And so that was basically a kind of a brief report that looked at all different alternatives for blowers, for aeration equipment, and all the different equipment that would be utilized in this immediate replacement of our aeration system. And in August, just a few weeks ago, we received the draft plans and specifications from the consultant. Staff has completed our review, and about a week ago, I think it was a week ago today, we returned all of our comments back to the consultant, and they're working feverishly to address our comments and finalize the plans and specifications. And again, this is for the immediate aeration system replacement. So we anticipate those plans being ready and being ready to go out to bid in October, so in about a month and a half.
Matt, I'm a little confused. First of all, what are they bidding on? The alternative 2 or alternative 3?
No, so, yeah, I'm sorry, let me just clarify on that. So in the scope of work for the project, the city council had directed staff, basically to break the project into 2 phases. The first phase is just implement the aeration system replacement right away.
Right.
Because that was the big problem. Well, our current SBR sequencing batch reactor plant was not designed to denitrify the wastewater. To denitrify the wastewater requires a couple different aeration processes where you're adding lots of air into the water, and that takes a lot of energy to blow air. You know, air is compressible and light, right? And you're trying to blow that into the bottom of this basin and aerate all this water. So it takes a lot of energy to push all that air into the through the piping and into the system. So so that was the direction from the city council to implement that. That'll help us denitrify the wastewater easier and dramatically reduce our energy usage and save money at the plant.
Right, that was a good first step, and we already had the money budgeted from a previous budget, right? So my understanding was that was an easy decision to make. I'm asking more about the alternative 2 versus alternative 3 total cost.
Right, so we're proceeding with the aeration system replacement, and then, and so prior to preparing the plans and specs for that, they did a technical memo looking at all the technical aspects of the project. You know, there's different manufacturers for different equipment and things like that, and we finalized the design and so forth. But then the next 2 tasks are looking at they're doing a technical memo looking at the 2 different alternatives. So they're actually working on that now, but they've been focusing their energy on the plans and specs for the aeration system. And so in my presentation, I was going to get to it in a minute, but in a few months, they'll be done with this technical memo, basically to validate or compare alternative 3 and update the cost estimate. They're going to look at it more closely. You know, when Pace did the alternatives study, it was kind of a high-level cost estimates, right? So now they're going to drill down a little bit more, do a more detailed cost estimate, and compare that with this modified variation of alternative 2, the alternative 2 SFR.
So the answer is you don't have that number yet?
That is correct. So in a few months, they are working on it right now. In a few months, we'll have those numbers.
I thought I'd missed something along the way, but I appreciate you trying to explain that. Does that include the capture of the how do you call that water? Recovered water? Recycled water. Right.
Yeah, well, we're going to be doing, and they already have started kind of collecting data, but they're going to be doing a technical memo for the recycled water system as well. So what that is, basically, they're going to be doing a preliminary design, looking at the treatment aspects of it, the disinfection, the storage of it, the pump station, and the distribution system.
Right, that's an additional cost, a marginal increase in the cost, right?
Yeah, to add all the recycled stuff is a large additional cost. Yeah, so they're gonna do. So what Pace did was just really high level, looking at possible customers and just a really rough cost estimate.
I guess I was disappointed because Case came back and told us it was going to be, I think, in the neighborhood of 16 million, give or take $500,000, something like that, all in, and that they could potentially reduce it by 10%. They have to add in unforeseen costs, so they had padded it at least 10, by their own admission. So now you're coming back and telling us, or telling me, that it's going to be even more than the 16 million. That's what I take away from this?
Well, we haven't got the final numbers from Carollo Engineers, but yeah, the MBR alternative was going to be at least a few million more than what.
A few million?
Than what Pace had.
Like in the order of 20% more?
They're looking at it, you know, they haven't even shared with me any like preliminary information, because again, they've been focusing on the aeration system upgrade, so they are like, you know, just maybe a third of the way into it. But in a few months, they'll have those updated numbers for us, and we'll be bringing that back to the city council. So, I'm not sure if I'm answering your question or not.
No, you did indirectly. Thank you.
Okay.
I just want to know the date the fine bubble diffusers were going in.
To date the what?
Well, we're going to get to that. Hold that thought. Okay, so so one of the questions we need direction from the city council on is this PG&E on-bill financing. So we've been researching different grant programs and financing options with PG&E, and we actually aren't eligible for any grant, but they do have what they call an on-bill financing program, and it requires the city entering into an agreement with PG&E. And basically, the way it works, they've told us already that they think that they'll be able to loan us at 0% interest, $500,000, possibly a few $100,000 more. But at this point, I would just count on it being half a million, 0% interest. And what you do is you basically, in this agreement, you're agreeing to pay them back on your PG&E electric bill. So, for example, if our just pulling numbers, if our monthly power bill is $20,000 a month, and now after this aeration upgrade, it drops down to $10,000 a month, they'll hold the bill at $20,000 a month, and that extra 10 that they charge us will go towards paying back the $500,000 that they loan us. Yeah, but it's zero interest, not low, it's zero.
And our cash flow doesn't change.
Yeah, and the beauty of it is we've preserved $500,000 in our wastewater fund reserve for any kind of emergency or whatever. You know, we didn't spend that out on this project.
So what's the likelihood we're going to get that done?
They've told me they're confident that we're eligible for $500,000. So we're here to present that to the city council and ask your direction if you'd like us to finalize.
So we'll get to that later in the,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Okay, so again, we're anticipating in November, they'll have that Alternatives 3 validation technical memo where they're comparing Alternative 3 in more detail to this Alternative 2 SFR. And then in January, we'll have the recycle water preliminary design technical memo. Two of the issues with that right now, you know, there is the high capital and high operating costs. We sent a letter to the Alisal Ranch, which is the primary customer, feasible customer for recycled water. And they kept telling us they would send us a letter, which we have not received this in writing, but they have told me verbally that after considering it for several months, that they're not really interested in receiving recycled water from the city. So it would be feasible, but it's, you know, we can, their demand for their golf courses is basically double of the amount of recycled water we'd be able to provide. And so we could blend the water with their well water, and so the water quality would not be an issue. We don't anticipate. So that's not a deal breaker or anything, but it's just the cost. So they, you know, right now they can pump water from the river wells. They have the riparian rights, and they can pump for like $50 an acre foot. And our costs, our production costs, which we'll get an update on those numbers, but it's in the order of $1,500 to $2,000 per acre foot. And so they're just like, it's just from a business perspective. They want to work with the city and stuff and be helpful and cooperative, but that just doesn't make sense at all for them. But anyway, so let me see here. So this is just an exhibit. That's kind of by way of a reminder. The A areas, A1, A2, A3, those are the golf course and their wheat field. The recycled water would be suitable for those areas. And then there's other further out surrounding areas that we've looked at. But because you have to have a distribution system to get it out there, you know, the golf courses and that wheat field right next to the treatment plant were really the most feasible options for customers. And also their demands are really high, and they could use all the water. Where you'll see like A4 is the little pitch and putt golf course on the mobile home park and Fjord Drive. It looks like a lot of grass, but it's really not that much, and they would use very little. So anyway. So then projecting forward, we would.
I'm sorry, I got to ask a quick question because I was thinking about what the council was working on earlier this year, or maybe last year. We were talking about a Riverside Park. Could that water be used for that purpose? And the answer would be yes, right? So we wouldn't have to use river water. We could use the recycled water to basically water that potentially Riverside Park. Has anybody thought about that?
Rosetta?
I'm not sure I'm following you, actually, sorry.
Gallstone.
We were talking about creating a Riverside Park, let's just say from LSL toward Buellton. Who knows how long or how far that would extend, but just imagine there's some kind of Riverside Park, like the one that's on Fjord Drive now, just bigger, right? So the idea is if we were to use that water for that purpose, then we wouldn't have to compete with the riparian water rights of other people, like the C.G. Jackson Alsal Ranch.
Well, if you're talking about a new demand.
That's
you
what
know,
I'm talking about.
So really the benefit of producing recycled water, the primary benefit is to offset some other potable demand, not to come up with a new use for the water. It's to replace an existing use. Otherwise, you know.
Well then, but you brought up the golf courses. I don't see any difference between the park and the golf course, which is why I made that comment. But nevertheless, I think I know where you're going with this. It doesn't have to be treated to that specification to provide for that park.
Okay, so throughout next year, we'll have the start construction of the aeration system replacement. If we go out to bid, I've submitted questions to PG&E regarding their on-bill financing program to find out if we can go out to bid and start construction before an agreement is executed with the city, because they have a consultant doing all this analysis, looking at these aeration system upgrades and figuring out, you know, they have criteria that they use for coming up with how much they can loan us in this program, and we're kind of ahead of them. They were supposed to have been working on this, but I don't know, with the whole coronavirus and things, they got really delayed. So now we're pretty far out ahead of them. So we'll be ready to go out to bid or advertise this project for construction bids in mid-October. But I'm not sure if we're going to have the agreement documents and all that stuff from them by then. And then usually we advertise for bids for about 4 weeks, so say mid-November, we could be bringing back a staff report for the city council to award the construction contract. And then, because there's a lot of custom machinery and equipment, once the contract's awarded, we have to give the contractor a few months to basically provide us with what we call submittals. It's information, exact information on the model number and the size and the horsepower and all that, and all the features of the equipment. And then they order the equipment, and some of the pieces of equipment have like, 2, 3, 4 month lead time. So even though we've awarded a contract, they don't actually break ground at the treatment plant for 3 or 4 months after the contract's awarded, because they have to order all this, kind of long lead time equipment. So that's why I'm showing February. Well, actually, hopefully we could start breaking ground and begin the construction. But so I'm waiting to hear back from PG&E if we can proceed like that and bring the agreement to the city council in November or December or whenever, they have it ready. So at this point, unfortunately, I haven't heard back from them. I was hoping to have that information for you tonight, but so I apologize for the delay and that critical information. But anyway, so in the meantime, we'd be working on the final design for Phase 2, which is all the rest of the upgrades. And we're referring to Phase 3 as the recycled component. But, and then we finished the rate study and looked at the bond financing and have, updated cost figures for the project. So just going back again, so the one piece of direction, of course, we're looking for any direction you'd like to give us on anything that I've covered or anything on the wastewater treatment plant project. But specifically, we would like your direction to whether to proceed or not with bringing back an agreement for the on-bill financing, a PG&E on-bill financing agreement. So that concludes my staff report, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any questions of the staff report?
No. Good job, Matt.
Okay, good job. Do we have public comment? I have no speaker slips on this item. Is there anyone on the phone?
If anybody would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand. If you're on Zoom, I see one raised hand. And I'm not sure if it's for this item or it's just somebody has their hand raised, but Pebble people.
Yeah, I raised all the way between Blues on Mountain.
Okay, so you would like to speak on this item?
Not on this. I was going to speak on the promenade issue, and I had mine raised, so I've been waiting this time.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, you do not want to speak on this item.
No, I don't.
Can you show me where I can see everybody? There you go. Okay, we have no one on the phone. We only have Zoom users. If anybody on Zoom would like to raise your hand, please do so now. Don't see anybody with a raised hand. So no comment.
Okay. We'll take it back to the council for discussion and action. Who would like to start? Cool. So let's see, there was one item that you're asking for some direction on. The PG&E thing, I personally think that's a no-brainer. My only question about it is, I know we have some PG&E credits, and then we also purchased additional PG&E credits at some discount every now and then the city's looking to offload. So I don't know how much we actually have, and I don't even know if they're gone because of the bankruptcy thing or where all that stands. But my obvious question is, if we did that program, can we issue PG&E, can we use those credits against that loan balance?
No,
I think that's just a question to ask PG&E if.
No, I can tell you.
Okay.
So all the credits that we have are specifically for undergrounding overhead.
Okay, so they will not allow you, okay.
Yeah, it's the public utility, it's Rule 2020A. So it's a complete whole set of rules from, specific set of rules from the California Public Utility Commission. So, yeah, those funds are just specifically locked in or earmarked just for that purpose, so.
And as
But we haven't
Because
lost any.
I asked the
We
question
haven't
of
got
our.
a million credits.
Okay, so I asked that question of our representative when I did the tour of the plant, and it was during, when everything was very fluid, and they said they're going to be looking at, what's going to be happening there, but I just didn't know if they had come up with other options than that. So that's why I'm asking the question.
Well, what they've been looking at is, because of those fires up in Sonoma and everything, was it last year or the year before? They're wanting to generate a lot more funds and do the undergrounding more quickly. So, but I've been getting copied on emails where they were having hearings and stuff, and they actually should be very close to making the final they're updating the Rule 20A guidelines. So I think within the next, probably in the next few months, the PUC will make a ruling, and then you'll see some change on your electric bill.
Yeah.
And Ryan, you touched on that, that 20,000, 10,000 hypothetical scenario that you threw out. The bankruptcy doesn't affect that.
Correct. The bankruptcy is over.
But a lot of cities were wondering if we're going to lose their credits that they have
Correct.
through bankruptcy. Yeah.
Yeah, no, we won't lose our credits. And, yeah, in fact, we have a claim pending with them right now for some damage some delay, it's a delay claim on our Second Street drainage improvements. You know, I don't know if you remember, we had it all
Yeah.
open through the, you know, so
Yeah.
that was PG&E's fault. They delayed us and cost us an extra, I think, 35,000 or something.
The rains came and made a mess of it.
Yeah, so we have a claim pending with them, so I'm hoping to hear on that before.
Are we going to move toward purchasing power from this new entity, the Monterey Power thing?
You guys voted for it.
Yeah,
I didn't.
Yeah, we're not moving towards it. We've done it, and
So they're going to replace PG&E?
No.
well, PG&E is kind of shifting their business model. They've done all this power generation and power distribution in the past historically. They're shifting a little bit away from the power generation side, and they're just going to be primarily the distribution service. And so you'll still be always getting a PG&E bill and everything. But now we're part of the Monterey
Joint Powers
Joint-
Authority.
Yeah.
It's becoming California Central Coast or something authority.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I'm asking. Are we going to be buying our power from them?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Well, we would have to opt in. I mean, the
Yeah, we-
city is now, the city, you voted to be part of this authority, but each customer gets to opt in during a period
I thought
of
we
time.
voted to give the community the chance to opt in.
Right,
No,
so
I don't know if
everyone
we
does,
voted-
but you have to remember, the city is a customer of PG&E, so we can opt in or out ourselves.
Right.
That's what I'm asking. Did we
Just
opt
like
in?
anyone else can.
I'm-
By
I'm-
default, you
I'm
go
not
in. You'd have to make the request to go out.
That is exactly.
And
my
you
understanding,
pay to
that
go
we
out.
opted-
$5 or $15 for a business.
So when can we bring that up, that discussion? Because I didn't know where we were in that equation. I don't think the city should tie its horses to, or its wagon to that particular horse until it's able to guarantee a steady flow of energy. We can't afford any more.
Well.
This should have been brought up a long time ago when we first agreed on this.
Yeah, but you can opt out.
But we can opt out. That's the
anytime.
point. It's not
Anytime.
that hard.
Then let's
That's
opt
why-
out.
But the source of the energy will not, at least at this point in time, will not affect the continuity of service.
I'm more concerned about the blackouts, the rolling blackouts.
Right, so, this,
Mr. Mayor, I think
We're
that
getting
the
way
Public
off.
Works Director has answered the question, which
Yeah.
is that issue has nothing to do with the loan issue in front of you. And I would urge going further on that needs to be agendized for a future agenda.
I agree.
Can you put that on a future agenda?
Yes, we can
you.
put that on a future agenda.
June 30th of next year.
Yeah.
did I answer your question, Mayor?
Yes.
Okay, where are we?
Okay, so I think it's still a no-brainer, but I'm just going to ask if we can burn those credits up. That would be amazing, but if not, no big deal. But I think that pursuing that's a no-brainer, and as much as you can get.
Okay.
Because either way, I mean, we're talking about where we pulled up, financing options for all this, and all of them involve paying interest rates. If you can get a 0% somewhere, to me, it just seems like an obvious,
Yeah.
thing.
Great.
And then,
Is that a majority, as long as I. see
well, we
it
haven't made a
coming.
motion, but I'm just.
We haven't made the motion yet, right?
Speaking, since no one else is really doing
Right,
anything.
and I think this is a general file and receive, and you can give
It's
general
really-
direction.
yeah.
with
Okay,
just
okay.
nods.
And then, we have, my only questions was really around we moved on alternative 3 for a lot of reasons, during the discussion periods and deliberations on that. But if we don't have certain opportunities available, I just kind of question if we still are be in a decent position to not necessarily go alternative 3 if that's not.
Look, if there's no economic case
There's-
for it,
yeah.
you
Yeah.
can't justify it.
Yeah, we're in a good position to go either way and not lose any money or anything, or waste any
Okay.
engineering effort or anything. We're proceeding sequentially, so that that doesn't happen. And with, if you remember with alternative 3, it's got secondary and tertiary treatment kind of combined in one
Right.
step. With the alternative 2, it's 2 separate steps. And the one added benefit of alternative 2 is that if you do the MBR and you have the membrane filters, then
Can always add on.
well, if you have that MBR system, then when the regional board approves your plant and establishes your regulations and limits for your discharge, they are more stringent. And so.
On alternative 2.
No, with alternative 3.
Yeah.
Because basically you have this, more kind of advanced filtering system, so they're gonna say, okay, well, now you got this. It's kind of like a Porsche versus a really cool bicycle or something. I don't know, maybe that's not a good analogy, but since the MBR can do this high level of filtration,
They hold you to a higher
they recognize that, and so they kind of put the screws on you and say, you got to meet this, have these really low levels in your effluent, and you can't avoid that. They've already have a history of doing that.
Yeah, but to use your analogy, there's fewer moving parts in alternative 3, so it's cheaper to maintain it, operate it, right?
No,
No,
because,
it's a higher maintenance too.
yeah, you have to. These are pressure filters, so you have to apply the water. This additional pressure and pumping and everything to pull it all through the filters, and there's the cost of replacing the filters. So it does have a significantly higher O&M cost. And so with the disc filters, there's a few wastewater treatment plants right in our vicinity. In fact, the city of Lompoc uses the disc filters at their plant. But anyway, it's lower tech, but it's almost as effective. Produces recycled water that's just fine for irrigation uses, and at much lower cost. So, but again, they're going to go through that in detail and bring all those numbers back to the city council in a few months.
Great.
So,
Okay. So I think you have your direction.
great. Okay,
Unless
thank
anyone
you.
has anything else. My only last question was if there was any updates on direct reuse. I know that was a moving piece.
Yeah, well, we're not really, for direct potable reuse, the regulations actually haven't even been completed yet. Those
Right.
are the ones.
Is there a
that-
goal still to have them out by 2025? That's what I was hearing before, but I don't.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually haven't checked recently on their progress, but that was the last I heard.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just wondering if anyone else has, is there any other talk of that around California about direct reuse? Is there any other cities? Is anyone else considering this? Just wondering.
Well, there are a lot of agencies, the larger agencies that are considering it, and they're working with the regulatory agencies and stuff in doing the analysis and developing these regulations. So right now there are several agencies that are doing indirect potable reuse. I think it's the city of San Diego has recycled water that goes into a lake and then blends with just the surface water on it blends with the surface water in the lake, and at the other end of the lake they have a water treatment plant, and they treat it and filter it and send it out.
Like if we pumped it into Kachuma.
Exactly, similar to that. And then imagine, like they take the water in Santa Barbara and Goleta, they treat it, yeah. So it'd be similar to that, yes.
That'd be awesome.
Cool. All right, direction received. Move on to item number 2. Yeah, good job. Thank you. Investment policy annual review.
It's item number 6, sorry, your
my
scripted
Man,
agenda is a
both-
little bit.
All my stuff is just messed up tonight. Investment policy annual review, item 6. Staff report.
Okay, give me just 1 second here. Pull it up. Okay. So this item is an annual review of the investment policy. It is recommended by the state that a city would review their investment policy on annual basis. And you have not reviewed this investment policy in about a year. So it's in front of you now. In your packet is the full investment policy. It complies with all the state laws and regulations. And the recommendation today is for you to adopt a resolution that you are just acknowledging the receipt of this policy. I have made some red lines, and actually this conversation came up before and was brought up by Councilmember Waite in regards to the firm that manages our certificates of deposit. So the only recommendations I have made at this point to the investment policy is to add a section for an investment advisor and their responsibilities if we were to have one. In general, my recommendation is because we are small and I serve both as the city manager and the treasurer. I've also added a section in there that could be an appointed city treasurer by the city manager. But we have fairly small jurisdiction with a fairly small pool. So we could consider hiring an investment advisor who are licensed and who have fiduciary duties to manage your investment pool. However, in having worked with some of those before, I would question whether or not our amount of the dollars in the pool would make financial sense to where we would actually be making money by paying the financial advisor. So it would be just something that we can consider, or we can be a little bit more safe in our investments. Obviously, our policy does say that the safety of investment is first, and then it's the liquidity, and the last is actual interest rate earned. So if we err on the caution side of safety and liquidity, LAIF is a very easy to use mechanism to where for our purposes, for our small jurisdiction, that is kind of the primary tool that jurisdictions use. And without a financial advisor, I would not advise us at staff level investing and venturing out into all those other tools that are okay by law for us to invest in. But my general recommendation is for us to we have 2 CDs left that are not matured yet, but we could consider just bringing those funds once the CDs mature into LAIF and just having a very simple investment management strategy. That concludes my report.
Any questions of the staff report? No. Okay. With that, we'll go to public comment. I have no speaker slips on this item. Does anyone want to speak on this item on the phone or Zoom?
If you would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand. I see a few people on Zoom and nobody on the phone. See no takers. No comment.
Okay. We'll take it back to the council for discussion action. I'll start.
Okay.
I didn't see anyone else really looking to.
Go ahead.
I think before my understanding of the last time when this came up in our prior administration, it was more or less the finance director at the time that was kind of making choices with somebody. But I think that during these times, it's probably more important to be liquidable. And I think there's already, at the last meeting, were some concerns about
The broker.
Or choice of the, I don't know. It just seems to me it's just extra work for staff. And it's not like it sounds like it's kind of a questionable call on whether it's even worth paying the fees to even be doing this. My call would just be to pull the money back, be extremely liquidable, and it can be reevaluated some other day. But I think that would be less risky.
I would have said the same thing.
That's exactly my thoughts, exactly. Just wait for them to mature, put it all back into LAIF and be done.
And get through this, get over the hump, and let's see where we are
I mean, we're already dealing with all the cuts and all the extra and lots of change, moving pieces. I think you're better off.
And what's the average return on investment with LAIF? Because 3.25, that's not bad in this environment.
No.
When you're
No.
getting 0.5%,
Yeah, I think it was 1.4 something.
which is probably like a 30-year bond.
What's wrong with just leaving it there?
No, we're going to leave those two until the maturity, right?
Yeah. They're just talking if you want to keep pursuing or maybe you want to change the broker because, whatever. But again, it's just,
The issue was the broker, not the institution.
Right.
Yeah.
The policy's fine. It was the credit
Yeah.
risk.
But now what you're saying
Well-
is it's going to take extra effort on Xenia's part to figure out where to place the money and
I would just say that, generally speaking, in the jurisdiction of our city manager or finance director is usually not as skilled as an investment advisor to really be able to invest and pay attention to the markets and use all those tools. So I think that if you're not working with a professional from that industry that's licensed to do that kind of work, at our small jurisdictional level, it's better to just either do LAIF or to look for an investment advisor. I think that with our $22 million in the pool, it would be challenging for us to get an investment advisor to where we would actually be making money based on that additional margin that they could potentially get out of more risky
Yeah.
investments.
I mean, everything comes with that. If it comes with a fee and you want to make a small investment, you're going to pay more in the fees than what
Right.
it can just burn your
Exactly.
investment off too.
And then we get churned.
Yeah. Anyway, that's why I just think that there's so many other things that staff can be focusing on. That's just not,
I agree with the city manager. They don't have the sophistication or the skill sets to be able to manage this on an active basis. It's not worth the risk.
no.
This makes
Worth
it easy
time.
for her.
Yeah.
Good.
I move we just let them expire, pull it back, and move on. And
I'll second that.
Okay.
That's
it's
a
been moved and
motion.
seconded.
Yeah.
And would you like to just also include in your motion accepting the resolution acknowledging the receipt of this policy?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
As
Moved
I'll
and
accept
seconded.
the correction or amendment.
Mayor Pro Tem Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember DeJarnius?
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
Councilmember Waite?
Yes.
Mayor Toussaint?
Yes.
Passes 5-0.
All right. Item number 7, grand jury report response, homelessness.
So this item has to do with a recent report that the grand jury of Santa Barbara County has produced. We have to respond back to grand jury fairly soon here. So we need to have a council-approved response. This has to do with the subject matter of homelessness. The grand jury has made 11 recommendations. The county of Santa Barbara is included in all of them, and then most of the cities are included in majority of them. So these are responses, and as I have drafted them, you have the full report in your packet with the concerns that the grand jury is raising. And you are welcome to, of course, amend any of these responses as we go along and provide alternative direction. It is an issue that is here in Santa Barbara County. However, we in the city of Solvang have very few homeless that our sheriff's department is aware of and keeps track of. So the responses are based on the fact that we have locally not a lot of homeless in our jurisdiction, but at the same time, we are responding as part of Santa Barbara County. So the finding one that they have raised is that there is a need for greater transparency, understanding, and accountability of homeless-related expenditures and their results. Once again, all of these recommendations are for all jurisdictions in the Santa Barbara County. So my suggested response was agree. Recommendation 1B is that the city councils of Santa Barbara, Goleta, Santa Maria, Solvang, Buellton, Lompoc, Guadalupe, and Carpinteria publish an annual report of their homeless-related expenditures and outcomes. And just actually to go back to finding one, the options that you can say back to them is agree, disagree, or partially disagree. The response to this recommendation is that the city will include any funding toward homelessness issues in its future budget starting with the fiscal year 2021-22. I did not see that as a significant burden on the city of Solvang, and we could comply with this recommendation. Finding number 2 is permanent supportive housing for most vulnerable homeless is lacking. Response is agree. Recommendation 2 is that the cities, including City of Solvang, develop plans and devise mechanisms for providing ways to build permanent supportive housing for our most vulnerable homeless populations. To this one, I said requires further analysis. If you respond with requires further analysis, you have to set a date that's at the maximum 6 months out into the future. So the response is the city is open to working with the county and other city jurisdictions to make plans and devise mechanisms for providing ways to build permanent supportive housing. The city will complete the analysis by March 14, 2021. Finding number 3. State and federal funding that is granted to Santa Barbara County does not sufficiently support the mandate for housing the homeless. Responses agree. Recommendation 3 is that the Santa Barbara County Board of Supervisors and the cities, including City of Solvang, identify funding mechanisms, including but not limited to bond issues, dedicated taxing, a designated budgetary line item, and strong philanthropic partnerships for housing the homeless. Response, once again, requires further analysis. The city is open to working with county and other city jurisdictions to analyze the recommendation. The city will complete the analysis by March 14, 2021. Finding number 4, actually, is it March 2021? Yes. All right. Finding 3, state and federal funding that is granted to Santa Barbara County does not Finding number 4, elected city and county leaders have not exhibited aggressive leadership in determining the availability of sites in their jurisdictions for housing the homeless. Response, partially disagree. More information is needed. Recommendation number 4, the Santa Barbara County Board of Supervisors and the city, including City of Solvang, designate and facilitate building of housing for the homeless on sites within their jurisdictions. Response will not be implemented. The City of Solvang has minimum homeless population and will focus instead on production of housing and affordable housing to meet state requirements and ensure the city's homelessness does not increase. Finding number 5, a greater effort is needed to inform and include the public regarding the needs of the homeless for housing and services and how it can appropriately fit into neighborhoods. Response, partially disagree. The jurisdictions do not have communication channels about available resources and homeless needs. Recommendation 5 is that the Santa Barbara County Board of Supervisors and the cities, including City of Solvang, be more proactive in informing the public of the needs of the homeless for housing and services and how it can appropriately fit into neighborhoods by holding forums and conducting tours of existing facilities to educate residents whose neighborhoods are proposed for the development of projects for the homeless. Response will not be implemented. The city has minimal homeless population.
We'd have to import the homeless to make this reality.
Alternative to the suggested methods, the city will post available homeless resources on city website to inform those in need. Finding 8, all overnight emergency shelters are at capacity year-round. There are not enough day centers, and there are currently no navigation centers in Santa Barbara County. Partially disagree, partially need more analysis by location. Recommendation 8A, that the Santa Barbara County and the cities work together to create overnight emergency shelters commensurate with their homeless populations. Response will be implemented by June 30, 2021. The city is open to working with the jurisdictions in collaboration to create overnight emergency shelters in commensurate with the population.
Why can't we just leverage existing facilities outside of Solvang? And instead of building new facilities to house people that don't even exist, why not just contribute into a pool so that these shelters can be built by the county near hospitals and other type of welfare systems.
So what this is asking is for the cities to work in collaboration with the county to create this kind of strategies that are countywide. And it is, in this case, commensurate with the population. So they are taking into account within these recommendations that whoever has more homeless within their population would be contributing more. If you read the report, you will see that all of these housing needs are reported as showing large shortage within the county overall. So that's the basis of the overall report, that there is not enough.
It's all Santa Barbara.
I agree. I guess I'm a little frustrated because the county is responsible for taking care of these people, right? The county health system and welfare system. Why don't they place these people closer to those places where the services are being provided?
We could sit here and discuss the issues and the reasons for homelessness all night long, but I would recommend that Zena just complete with her report.
Are there any questions of the report?
So there's a couple more
Yeah,
recommendations.
she still got some
Okay.
more. Do we have to?
So recommendation 8B, that the Santa Barbara County Board of Supervisors and the cities work together to create day centers commensurate with their homeless population. The response will be implemented by June 30, 2021. The city is open to working with the jurisdictions in collaboration to create day centers. Recommendation 8C, very similar to that, except that we are talking about navigation center concepts. Once again, the city is open to working with the jurisdiction in collaboration to create more shelters. Finding number 9, currently several California cities are providing temporary homeless facilities by utilizing alternative cost-effective forms of housing such as high-performance tension fabric structures, tiny houses, and modular housing. Response partially disagree, need more information on the effectiveness of these programs. Recommendation 9, that the Santa Barbara County and the cities undertake feasibility studies and develop plans for using alternate types of cost-effective forms of housing. Response will not be implemented. The city will need more information on the effectiveness of these programs before undertaking a feasibility study. Last recommendation, number 10. Currently in some California cities, large healthcare insurers are utilizing their tax credits to fund housing facilities for the chronically homeless. Response disagree partially, need more information. Recommendation 10 is that the County of Santa Barbara, along with the cities, contact major healthcare insurers in their jurisdictions and encourage them to seek partnerships to support the construction of housing for the chronically homeless. So this is only contact and encourage. Response will be implemented by June 30, 2021. That is all of the recommendations. If you would like to change anything, but this letter needs to get back, it's due to the grand jury.
Okay. Are there any questions on staff report? Seeing none, do we have any public comment? I don't have any speaker slips. No one's in the room. Is there anyone on the Zoom?
Would anybody on Zoom like to speak on this item? Please raise your hand.
I think there's now 2 people on Zoom.
I just have
Yeah.
one comment.
Okay. We'll bring it back for
Okay.
comment. Yeah. Okay, we'll bring this back to the council for comment. Robert?
It's just interesting that in their report, it says the County of Santa Barbara needs to educate ourselves about the children, working families, seniors, and disabled, and the military veterans who comprise most of the homeless population. And I didn't know that that's where the majority of our homeless population was coming from: families, military veterans, and seniors. I did not know that, and I would love to see where those numbers come from.
Okay. Anyone else?
I would only recommend that maybe they should talk to Adam Carolla about the homelessness issue.
Oh, my.
He knows a lot about those issues. So.
Okay. Anyone else? Is there a motion? Robert, you have a motion?
No.
No?
I move
Daniel,
that
you
we
have a
go
motion?
ahead and accept the
Okay.
letter as
I'll
is.
second that.
Okay. Mayor Protem Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember DeJarnius?
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
Councilmember Waite?
Yes.
Mayor Toussaint?
Yes.
Thank you.
Item number 8, the California Cities Annual Conference Resolution Packet, staff report.
I don't believe
Right, so this is an annual resolution that the city is part of the League of California Cities. You have delegated Mayor Protem Robert Clark as the delegate at a previous meeting for the League of Cities of California.
Due to it's a merit-based pick, right?
It's a merit-based pick, yes.
Yeah.
What's here in front of you now is that they have sent us the proposed resolution packet for this year. And They encourage the council to meet ahead of time and discuss the issue before the delegate submits the vote in October later this year. So the resolution that is part of the packet for this year is a resolution of the General Assembly of the League of California Cities calling for an amendment of Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act of 1996 to require social media companies to remove materials which promote criminal activities. So you will see on your page 185, it basically says the most important, it leads by whereas local enforcement agencies seek to protect their communities, residents, businesses, and property owners. There's increasingly criminals use social media platforms to post notices, places, dates, and times. Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act currently provides online platforms, including social media platforms, immunity from civil liability based on third-party content and for the removal of content. And so they are recommending an amendment of Section 230 is necessary to clarify that online platforms are not immune from civil liability for promoting criminal activities. And you can read some more materials here. On the background, it was submitted based on the latest events about the nation's reaction to the murder of George Floyd, and which was followed by social media that resulted in significant costs for this particular city. That was the proposal of the resolution. So the recommendation is to take that immunity from the social media platforms and essentially make them sort of police the social media to reduce expenditures to the cities.
Are there any questions of the staff report?
No, I'm actually pretty amazed that they did that. Mm-hmm.
They did what? Oh. Well, you release them, then you go after them again. Catch and release program. Do we have anything else? Any other questions?
No.
Okay. Public comment? Is there any public comment? I have no speaker slips.
Would anybody on Zoom like to speak on this item? Raise your hand. Nobody's raising hand. No comment.
Okay. Oh, I have one thing. Can you and I get together and go over this before that meeting?
Yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
thank you.
All right, we're bringing this back to the council for discussion and action.
Are we actually taking an action, or are we just making a recommendation?
You're just making a recommendation to your designated delegate.
I'd recommend that we do it. I mean,
Okay. Congratulations, Robert. I'll second that.
Okay, there's
Do
no
I get a
motion.
plaque or
there's
something?
no motion.
Oh, okay, keep going. All right, item number 9.
Yep, last one. You get to
Delegate, California Joint Powers Authority voting delegate. Staff report.
you need to delegate to delegate. You can pick a couple of alternatives.
I nominate Robert.
Okay, I'll nominate Robert.
Okay. Seconded, Mayor Pro Tem Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember DeJarnius,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Waite,
Yes.
and Mayor Toussaint.
Yes. Congratulations.
Thank
I
you.
know you really campaigned on that one.
You saw
All
my
right.
signs, didn't you?
I saw your signs, yeah. All right, and then we're on to item number 10, AB 1234, report out, council comments and requests. Again, there's been no events, so I don't think there's been anything the city has paid for the council to go to, so I don't think there's anything to report out in AB 1234. We've satisfied that requirement. Who would like to start with council comments and requests?
I will.
Okay.
Just a few things. I've got some comments from some merchants and some visitors that the sidewalks and the streets look kind of really dirty. And if there's something that we could, I know we're shorthanded, but if there's something we can possibly do, maybe do some steam cleaning on the sidewalks.
We did, actually, we are doing extra cleanings of the sidewalks, but obviously there's a lot more wear and tear, especially on Copenhagen. So the last one we did about a month ago, which is much more frequent than usual, but yes, we can.
I imagine now, since
continue.
everything has to be outside,
That's
there's
the
probably
problem.
food dropping,
Right.
Yeah.
syrup, and,
Yeah,
a
the
lot more
cobblestone are like in front of Burke Holmes, et cetera,
Yeah.
that whole stretch.
Yeah,
It's
there's
a
gonna be
little
more.
ratty. And then, how do we get this deal with the cameras to assist the sheriffs on Copenhagen, Alisal, and maybe Atterdag? How do we move this forward?
It's on your advanced calendar.
Next year.
I read that. I forgot. You're right. Thank you.
Okay, Daniel?
The only thing I would mention is just I received another email from Michael Mendiza regarding 5G and then some other issues, and so I'd love to have that on the advanced calendar that we can bring it forward and discuss.
That was on my list today too, because I ran into Michael.
Okay,
Sure.
Yeah, I'd like to bring that on there so we can talk about it.
On that subject, really quick, I think staff was going to look more into if there's even anything that we can do, and I'm not sure if that ever has got.
Oh, legally?
Then we had the pandemic and whatever, so I'm not sure if that ever really got looked into. But
Probably not.
I don't want to enter a discussion, but it's just a quick question. I'm judging by the looks. I don't think anything's happened since the pandemic. All right.
If that does come up, I'd love to see the providers of the 5G to actually come and speak to us, the pros and the cons. We know where Mendiza stands. I want to know what they're doing, what Verizon's doing for you.
Yeah, I'd like to hear that as well.
I mean, the information he's providing is very compelling, so that's why I'm concerned, just because he's done a lot of research, spent a lot of time, so at least I feel like that's something we should discuss. So.
I totally agree. I was anti, and now I'm leaning more towards that.
Chris?
Well, first of all, I think we need to have a more community-based approach to discussing things like 5G, because that plays into smart cities, which also plays into what you're talking about. That is the future, whether we like it or not. It's coming, and we need to know. We want the community to know that if it is safe. I'm assuming that it is safe. Otherwise, they wouldn't be allowing that. The federal government and the states wouldn't be allowing it.
Oh, it's
Don't look at me like
it's
that.
Same.
kind of a.
Just
I mean,
there's fluoride in your water too.
All right.
We'll see. Now,
there's
the reason-
definitely
wait,
a lot of policy discussion on that at different country levels and
I think we're exceeding
lots of different
that.
opinions.
Yeah.
So what I,
We're
but
moving.
the reason why I wanted to comment on was the fact
No,
that I'm
Chris.
working with.
Mr. Mayor, I think that there's already been a request
There is a
and
consensus for
confirmation
this.
this will be an agenda item.
Yeah.
So
I'm
I
not
think
on
that's
that
as far.
anymore. I'm moving on.
Okay.
All right. Go ahead.
So my point is that I've been working with some of the business owners on Mission to try and expand their porch, I don't know what you'd call it, their patio area toward Mission. I think this is a wonderful idea. And I would encourage my colleagues here to go and talk to the landlords and encourage them to ask for an encroachment permit from the city so we can move forward with something like that. I'd like to see something on, we'll call it I'm calling it the gas lamp promenade. So we stretch it from 4th Street all the way as far as we can towards 5th Street. But that way, it's just one continuous promenade, if you will. It's a way to bolster the energy and excitement of that particular part of town.
I'm all for that, yeah.
I'm all for that.
Okay. Fantastic.
Karen?
Well, I liked everyone's comments just now, so
Awesome.
no other comment from me.
Cool. So you like the idea of surveillance cameras?
Yeah, that was,
All right. Now we're starting to.
that's gonna be
go
on
into-
a future agenda,
yeah,
not
there
for
you go.
discussion right now.
There we go. Starting to learn here. All right. And then my only comments are, sorry I wasn't at the last meeting. It was enjoyable to call in, but had an awesome trip. Went to Walla Walla, Washington. Flew there, did a one-way car, drove to Spokane and Coeur d'Alene and a town called Wallace. All amazing. Then drove over to Missoula, Montana. Amazing weather the whole entire time.
Is this like show and tell?
It was like, well, but it also is. I'm coming back to home a little bit on the Copenhagen closure. Doing all these travels and seeing what all these different cities are doing. I think we're on the right track. So anyway, It was amazing, but I just wanted to bring it home to what's going on here. And you get stuck in your own little echo chamber of what is going on right here. But sometimes if people just took a little bit of time, slowed down, and looked at what's going on elsewhere, they might have a different take on things.
Good point.
Yeah. And that's it. We're adjourned.